because a vision softly.
And thank you for returning to another Haphazard recording with your host Lance Reynard, going through a different world. Created by Jean Johnson, narrated by her loving son, Lance Reynard. So let's break this silence. Get to it. Hello once again, and welcome back to another curiously creative narrative of my mother's story. Part 2, the installment of A Different World. The life story of Jean Johnson, well, Jean Pratt, then Jean Reynard, then Jean Johnson, and my mother. And in our first segment, we were talking about how she was born in a little town in Minnesota, or near a little town called Albertville, and she was talking about her grandfather, how he was born on Prince Edward Island. And the long story she mentions was the family fought for King George back in the day, and King George gave land to the family, and that's why my great-grandfather was born here. Then later on in history, the family fought for America during the Civil War for the North, and President Lincoln granted us land once again. The land grant was lost when it was handed to the Wilkes Booth Framing Company to have it framed, and apparently Mr. Booth didn't like that idea. So, to carry on to the next part of this story, I'm going to go right ahead to the next installment. Enough of Family History is where it's going to start, and I'm going to change the music theme to something from the 30s. Alexa, play music from the 30s. Now, enough of my family history. Let us take a look at my growing up. It was wonderful having so many people around. We played lots of games, made fudge and popcorn every Sunday, and always had lots of fun. Mom and Dad went visiting every Sunday, and the only time that we would go visiting was to go to Aunt Mary's. She had 5 sons, and they all had comic books. We would all hunker down and wanted to stay there reading comic books forever. One day my father took a piece of wood from the wood box and slammed it hard, making a huge noise. My little sister, Anna Mae, didn't even jump. Dad said, "Well, that settles it. We have to find a school where she can learn how to lip read." There was a school for the deaf in Faribault, Minnesota, south approximately 200 miles. My father said they would only teach sign language there so that she'd only be able to talk to deaf people. We need to get them into a lip reading school so that they can get along in the outside world. And he found a school in Rochester, Minnesota, a little farther than Faribault, and you had to be a resident to go to that school. And so we all moved, except for the 2 oldest, Beatty and Bill, who stayed with Dad on the farm. Dad brought eggs to Mom, which she sold in Rochester for income. For many years, I had learned that it was a real hardship for them, maintaining the 2 households. Anna Mae was only 4, but she and I would walk the few blocks to school, and we'd walk past the nuns' convent, which had a big board fence. We'd look through the fence cracks and saw the nuns with their black skirts tied up so that they could play tennis. My first big dramatic letdown was my first communion. I had the white dress and the veil, but unlike the other girls in their black baby doll patent leather shoes, I had to wear my ugly old brown shoes. Ugh. I didn't even smile for my picture. I was not happy. We lived in Rochester for 2 years, and Adrian was the only one of us that was born in a city hospital. The next years, Eileen and Anna Mae stayed with the neighbors, where Eileen said she was slave labor and the rest of them did nothing. We loved the movies. I think I told you that Uncle Jim lived with us in the summer. During the school year, he was a principal in a school in Bismarck, South Dakota. But summers, is what we used to call Grandpa's room, became Uncle Jim's room. When we wanted to go to the movies, I was around 8, so the rest were smaller. Everyone loved Anna Mae, so we would tell Anna Mae to go ask Uncle Jim to take us to the movies. "Will you pay my way to the movies?" And Anna Mae would nod, "Yes, of course." Uncle Jim would ask, "Will you put gas in my car?" And over, "Yes, of course," Anna Mae would nod. "Okay, then I will take you to the movies." Well, one day Uncle Jim wasn't around and we wanted to go to the movies. "I know," said Donald. "We can take the truck." Donald could steer, but he couldn't reach the gas or brakes, so Adrian crouched under and he operated those. And we were off. Off to the movies! This worked for a while, but one Sunday the truck wouldn't start. There must have been a reason. Uncle George's truck was parked in the yard, so we opened up the hood to see what was different. And sure enough, someone had removed the distributor cap. So we took Uncle George's truck, and we were off to the movies. One time in the rain, the truck skidded off the road and got stuck in the muddy field. We all walked home and found Dad there at home. He drove the tractor out and pulled the truck from the muddy field back onto the road, and to our amazement, he never said a word. We weren't even punished. We were so surprised. Anna Mae now goes to a boarding school for the deaf in Milwaukee. Eileen went to Faribault for a time, and she hated it. The rest of us went to the Catholic school in Albertville, taught by the Notre Dame nuns. Sister Lucy was just the best teacher, and I happened to be her pet, until one day she asked me if I wanted to be a nun like her. And when I said no, I found out that I wasn't the teacher's pet anymore. Everyone who went to Catholic school has stories about these nuns that they had in grade school and how mean they were. However, I beg to differ, good man. The only incident that I recall when I was a girl was when a girl stole our lunches and got caught. Sister Hildas Haktung, I think her name was, a German nun who escaped Hitler's persecution. Mach schnell. She taught me to knit a pair of mittens. I never attempted that again, mein Herr. Anyway, she asked the thief, "Which hand did you steal with?" And she would take a ruler and cut that hand off. Whack that hand. "Which hand did you eat with?" And whack. All of us were crying. But then again, of course, I'm just kidding. She never did. She had her head down and went back to her seat. As they say, as it were, if you will. Indubitably, lunchtime we would play softball, and I was chosen last constantly because I was such a lousy player. I couldn't run, couldn't catch, couldn't throw, couldn't fall down, I was hopeless. And so I had that going for me. Off to high school. We rode the bus to the Elk River High School where my older brothers and sisters had gone. Mr. Handkey, the superintendent, walked the halls with a rubber hose, as they say. I never heard that he used it, but I would often hear a smacking, loud sound in the hallway. But the threat, of course, was always there. I had fun in school. I didn't do my best, and I was pretty lazy in high school. I was even threatened by Mr. Vanderberg. Mach schnell, Achtung, mein Fräulein. Principal to shape up or not graduate. Klein Hund. And so I worked harder at my algebra because I could play the piano, groups of the girls would dance and sing during our lunch hour. My greatest joy in high school was being in plays, because I am a good actor and enjoyed being in every play. I didn't date until my senior year, when I dated the captain of the football team, Joey Guacamole. We never kissed. He was a junior and really liked the other boys a lot. He was a junior and very popular with the other guys. I never got into trouble, but only thanks to the boys in the bus. You see, the boys in the bus played poker in the back of the school bus, and I would play poker too and just clean them out. Someone tattled on us, and the boys got reprimanded, but they never told Mr. H, or Hand Key, that I was a part of the poker playing ensemble. Or, these days we call them posse, baby. And I loved those guys. And taking all their cash, and I love their cash. Oh yes, Mrs. Parsons liked me because I was a great English student. At one point, she suggested that I drive her car. Ha! Taking as many students along to go out to St. Cloud for a Shakespeare play. My friends piled into the car for the 50-mile drive, and we were laughing and singing and having a great time. And when I got pulled over, I told the officer, honestly, officer, none of us were driving. We were all in the back seat singing. But on the way home, we experienced a nasty smell. And after putting my shoes back on, I found that at the local garage, I had been driving with the emergency brake on. I took Latin 2 years because someone said that if you go to college, you have to take a language. Latin was all that you could get at Elk River High School. When I told my father I wanted to go to college, he said, absolutely not. Woman's place is in the kitchen, and spending all that money when you're just going to get up married and pregnant anyway is absolute waste of a life. So no, no, and triple times no. Silently. I said, Daddy, I'm going to go to college. One of my friends was going to college at St. Teresa's College for Women in Winona, Minnesota, not far from here. I spent the summer working at Brown and Bigelow for $1.10 an hour. Cheap bastards. The extra 10 cents was for working the night shift. I lived with my sister Eileen, who worked there too, in a studio apartment. At Brown and Bigelow, that wasn't our studio apartment. Every day, we would enjoy a BLT and malted milk for lunch. One time, my mother came to visit us, and I had to sleep in the bathtub so she could share the bed with Eileen. I woke very clean that next morning. Clean with Eileen. I loved working so much because I wasn't in the bathtub, and I applied at St. Teresa's Women's College, all-female college, even though I didn't want to be a nun. I had saved $200 and borrowed $200 from Mr. H, Mr. Handkey, Mr. Happy Handy. So I worked another $200 up at the local tea house where we drank and smoked on campus, and I earned money as a mime. It was truly another world. Sister Evangelista insisted that no lady is ever seen without a hat and gloves. I was grounded for 2 weeks and chained into the basement, throwing pieces of raw meat at me each week. I was locked into the basement for 2 weeks. I was grounded for 2 weeks because I didn't have time to go out and get that stupid hat and gloves. We had formal balls and were teamed up with St. Mary's College boys, who I'd assume had formal balls as well. So everyone had a partner at the formal balls, and they dance card for, the formal. But it was such fun. Both of my dates insisted that they wanted to marry me. One of them even flew a plane into the barn. One of them even flew a plane to the farm. That summer, I heard later that he had become a priest. I heard later that he had become a priest after I crushed his heart. Such wonderful fun. We had such innocent fun. Up for Mass every day before breakfast. Closest I've ever came to living in a nunnery. Loved every minute. But when Sister E asked if I would take advantage of a scholarship, I said no. No way, man, nowhere square. Because we can only become a nurse or a teacher. I don't want to be that. My first big error in my job hunt. Jot that down, children. We didn't think of jobs as a career. Only just a job. Not something to devote your entire life, religion, science. Anyway, I enrolled in a modeling school at night, of course, because daytime enrollment was not allowed. Achtung, and I typed for an insurance company during the daytime. I went on a few modeling assignments, but did not like the way that they treated us. Like, drop those drawers, baby, and shake that little body, and stick out your boobies. They were disgusting. So I enrolled at the Beck Radio School. WLOL was on the second floor of the Plaza Hotel. Coming straight to you, WLOL from the Plaza Hotel. Beck Radio was on the first floor in the same building. I was living at 35 Groveland Terrace on a hill right next to the school. Quite convenient. It was there where I fell in love with another student. One day a programming director came into the school and he said, "Does anyone here know how to type?" On the spot, he hired me as continuity director for WLOL in the Plaza Hotel at $450 a month. The boarding was only $14 a week, I think maybe $14 a month. The house was big and had lots of girls that stayed there. One of the guys that walked me home each and every single night, but one night there was nobody regular to walk me home, and I asked the only black student if he could walk me home. He looked at me with a tearful eye and he said, "I'd love to, but the guys would beat me up if I did." Well, I, of course, was shocked. But I did type logs and make commercials. It was fun. One of the salesmen who handled the movie accounts insisted that every commercial start with, "Try not to miss it, if you can." No sense at all, but what fun. Later on, management insisted I have 1 hour on the air. They wanted to recruit household cleaning products and felt that a feminine touch was needed. So for 4 hours, I hosted Ballards and Barbara. I was now Barbara Bain. Later on, we added an onstage kids hour preceding movies at the theater called Phew Funorama. And later kids, Saturday music hour called Make Believe Playhouse. I loved it. Interviewed passing celebrities such as Ronald Reagan when he was just a pathetic little nobody movie star prior to his being a has-been. I had to go to cocktail parties and various events for WLOL from the Plaza Hotel. It was a great time, and we were married by a Catholic priest in a courthouse. So, this is part of the beginning. She found a great boss and ended up as a catering secretary. And I have mentioned in the past that I will direct my channel, and I will not allow other people to demean people. And that is anybody. So you have yourself a great day. Thanks for listening to some of this minor information about the fundamentals of my mother's life story, and I hope you have enjoyed these minor details, and I'll talk to you soon. My upcoming productions will have nothing to do with family and personal, but thank you for watching this particular Haphazard production. And I hope you got something out of it. I did. Talk to you soon.